We moved here from Millbrae over 20 years ago, and I remember that first month here in Castro Valley thinking, why didn't anyone tell me this before we moved? I discovered this place mountain biking at Lake Chabot. I had no notion of moving here. It was completely accidental, and not only did I fell in love with this place, but my wife too. But love doesn't mean you know what you're actually getting into. So if you're thinking about moving to Castro Valley, whether you're relocating from the peninsula like us, Silicon Valley, or somewhere else in the East Bay, I'm going to walk you through 10 things that nobody talks about until it's way too late. Things about neighborhoods, cost of living, commutes, schools, the vibe living here, the actual money you're spending, and stuff that changes whether you're going to thrive here or regret the move inside of 6 months. I've spent over 23 years in real estate. I've seen hundreds of people move to Castro Valley. The ones who do it right, they know these 10 realities going in. The ones who don't, they're the ones calling me a year later wanting to know what are their options. So stick with me because by the end of this video, you're going to understand whether Castro Valley is actually the right move for you or whether you should be looking at Hayward, Dublin, or somewhere else in the region. Let's start with the thing that surprises everyone, no matter where you're coming from. And that is the real cost of living surprise. Let's talk about cost of living surprise living in Castro Valley. This is cheaper than the Peninsula. This is cheaper than Palo Alto or San Francisco. But is it actually cheaper than most of the Central Valley or more inland areas? What you need to know is this. Your rent or mortgage is going to be roughly 20% or maybe even 30% less than the Peninsula or San Francisco, but your groceries, your gas, your daycare, your restaurants, that's basically the same. And property taxes here in California are about 1% of your home value annually, which is lower than most states, but higher than what you might expect if you were used to Texas or Nevada. The real cost of living surprise isn't that it's expensive, it's that you're paying Silicon Valley adjacent prices for a more affordable location, which means there's actually less savings than you think. People come here thinking they'll cut their housing costs in half and suddenly have an extra thousand or more a month. That doesn't happen. Next point, the commute math that nobody gets right. If you're working in San Jose, you're looking at 45 minutes to over an hour each way. If you're in San Francisco, it's about the same. People tell me, oh well, I'll just take BART. And honestly, parking at the Castro Valley BART is easy now. That's not the issue anymore. The real question is whether you want to spend an hour plus on BART to get to downtown. Commute just doesn't work for you no matter how you slice it. And if you're commuting 4 or 5 times a week, you need to think about gas, car maintenance, your mental state of being, on the road. Now, remote work, that changes everything and makes Castro Valley incredibly attractive. Point number three, the neighborhood diversity. This is one of the things I love about Castro Valley. There's no single vibe. You've got older, established neighborhoods in the hills with character and deep community roots. You've got newer developments that feel like they could be anywhere with HOAs and cookie cutter architecture. You've got neighborhoods that are walking distance to shops, restaurants, and neighborhoods where you're 15 minutes from everything. The problem is people come in looking for one version of Castro Valley and they end up in the wrong neighborhood for who they actually are. A young family might love Palomares Hills. A retired couple might hate it. Someone wanting walkability should look at neighborhoods close to Castro Valley Boulevard or Lake Chabot or Redwood Road, not up in the hills. This diversity is a strength, but you have to know which part of Castro Valley you're actually moving to. Point number four, the school situation. Now, if that matters to you, Castro Valley Unified School District gets solid marks in East Bay rankings. But here's what nobody tells you. Elementary schools are strong in some neighborhoods and struggling in others. The same goes for middle schools. High schools here are actually pretty good. But if you have a child with specific needs, whether that's a gifted programs, special education, or particular sports or arts focus, you need to look at individual school ratings, not just the district average. And if you're buying specifically for school access, talk to a counselor first. The school your kids will attend isn't always the closest one. Point number five, the weather and fire risk reality. Castro Valley sits in a position where you get East Bay Hills weather, which means summer heat that can surprise you if you're coming from the peninsula or bay adjacent areas. 90 degrees in July is not that uncommon in the hills and neighborhoods. And yes, we're in a fire prone region. Some neighborhoods have way more fire risk than others. Closer to the hills, yes, definitely. Down in the flatlands, lower risk. If you're buying, check the local fire hazard maps and have a realistic conversation about evacuation routes and defensible space. This isn't mean to scare you away, but it's a thing people don't ask about until they see their first fire threat alert. I have something for you guys that you'll find useful if you're moving to the East Bay. Here's what I put together. It's a complete East Bay relocation guide that walks you through all 10 of these points in details, plus neighborhood breakdowns, pricing comparisons, with Hayward, Dublin, school ratings, commute times, and an honest assessment of each major area in the East Bay. I call it the My East Bay Relocation Guide. The link is in the description below. Whether you're looking at Castro Valley is the right move for you or somewhere else, this thing will help you out. Point number 6, the 2 zip code price gap. Here's something that catches people off guard. Castro Valley has 2 zip codes and they're not created equal. There's 94546, which is the flatlands in the more central part of town. Median home price there is around 1.16 million. Then there's 94552, the hills or the canyons. Those homes are bigger, more privacy, better views of the bay, and you're paying for that. Median price there is about 1.5 million. That's a $400,000 difference, and it's not just price. The vibe is completely different. 94546 is more suburban and accessible. 94552 is more secluded and hillside living. You need to know which one you're actually buying into before you start looking. Because if you're not aware of this split, you might end up in the wrong part of town, paying for the wrong price. Number 7, the housing stock reality. Most homes in Castro Valley were built between the 1960s and the 80s. That's 40 to 60 years old. That means character, history, and deep roots. It also means you're potentially looking at aging plumbing, electrical systems that might need updating, roofing that's due, and foundation issues in certain neighborhoods. This isn't a deal killer, but it's a reality check. You're not buying a new construction home like you might in Pleasanton or Danville or Dublin. You're buying into an established community that comes with maintenance surprises. Factor that into your inspection. Don't get surprised 6 months in when you find that you need 20 grand for plumbing work. Point number 8, neighborhood selection, lifestyle. Here's what I tell every relocation client. Castro Valley isn't one thing. You need to know which Castro Valley you're actually moving to. If you're a family with kids, Five Canyons and Palomares are where you want to be. Family-oriented neighborhoods, strong community, good schools nearby, amenities. If you want walkability and easy access to BART, look at downtown Castro Valley near the station. You can walk to the coffee shops, the farmers markets, restaurants. If you want space and value, West Castro Valley, somewhere in the canyon, that's where you want to be. More spread out land, less crowded. The mistakes people make is they fall in love with Castro Valley without knowing which neighborhood actually fits who they are. You can end up in the wrong part of town, paying again the wrong price and the wrong vibe. Point number 9, the traffic choke points are real. Castro Valley's central location is both a blessing and a curse. Yes, you've got quick access to 238, 580, and even 680. But during rush hour, all 3 of those freeways are parking lots. And it's not just the freeways. People from Danville, San Ramon, and Pleasanton cut through Castro Valley to avoid freeway traffic. So guess what? Local streets get clogged up too. If you're heading east towards Dublin in the afternoon or west towards Oakland in the morning, you need to know this. A 5-minute drive can turn into 20 minutes. And if you're working in those directions, that's your reality 5 times a week. Finally, point number 10, this is a place where people stay. Look, I'm going to be real with you. Castro Valley isn't perfect. It's not. Some of the main roads get congested during commute hours. The shopping and dining scene, while it's gotten better, doesn't compare to San Ramon, Pleasanton, or Dublin. And if you're used to walkable downtown neighborhoods, Castro Valley's more car dependent than you might want. But here's the flip side that most people don't consider when they're researching. This isn't somewhere people are fleeing from. This is a place where people stay. The neighbors actually know each other. The community has roots. Real estate holds its value here because it's a genuinely good place to live for families, for retirees, for people who want proximity to the hills in the city without being in the city itself. 20 years ago, my wife and I fell in love with this place by accident. 20 years later, we're still here and we're not alone. That stability is worth something. So here's what I want you to do. Take these 10 things and sit down with whoever you're making this decision with, your spouse, your partner, your family. Figure out which of these are a deal breaker or is a deal breaker for you and which ones you can actually live with. Because Castro Valley isn't going to be perfect for everyone. But for the right person, the right family, the right professional, this is an incredible place to call home. If you got questions about neighborhoods, commute times, schools, or anything else about Castro Valley or the East Bay, reach out. That's what I'm here for. I'm Mac Rogers.